future meetings on local housing strategy and the local strategic planning statement. Councillor Rice.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. This is where I am interested to draw attention to that statement, which I've now heard comes from the region, that there's not enough land in Kiama. The analysis indicates there's not enough land on market-ready infill development in the planning pipeline to meet this demand. From the data that we have been provided with, I tried to juggle the numbers and couldn't quite get them right yesterday, because I realised that there's a figure of only 2,389 dwellings that are still required in Kiama before 2036. And that was referred to in the 19th of March South Kiama planning proposal, that figure. And so if 42% of those are estimated to come from greenfield, as if we're going to keep if we estimate that the proportions will stay the same, that's 1,003 lots will come from greenfield development, or need to come from greenfield development. And so then I looked at what the 7 identified greenfield subdivisions are, and they're estimated as providing 617 lots. So obviously the difference between 617 and 1,003 is a few. So we're going to need more greenfield dwellings than that. So I can accept a little bit of that analysis indicating there's not enough land or market-ready development. I can see where that's coming from, but maybe not quite as greatly as is implied, because 58% of our dwellings are estimated to come from urban redevelopment, and so 58% of 2,389 is 1,385 dwellings could be estimated to come from there. So when we look at the difference between all those, we need to still find an extra 386 dwellings. Now, that's not necessarily lots, and when we look at the lots that get released in new greenfield developments, particularly in Cedar Grove 2, we end up with quite a few more dwellings than lots in those developments. So I think that we need to develop a very reasonable estimate of what percentage of our greenfield releases is actually going to dual occupancy, and I'll ask a question about that later on. So, but what my calculation did provide to me is that given with those estimates, if we need to find an extra 386 dwellings, then when you add on to those 7 identified future subdivisions without South Kiama, you'd add on an extra 455 from South Kiama, lots from South Kiama, and so that would end up placing us in excess of our requirement. If we need 386 dwellings, we release 455 lots there. That's going to amount to more than 500 dwellings, but we only need 386. So I see that we're in excess, but it's all pretty muddly because it's hard to get the data together. But thank you very much for providing the information here, and it's good to gradually be getting a better picture of what for me to have gradually developed a better picture of what the housing need is and what progress we're making towards that here in Kiama. But I will be asking another question when we get around to that.
Thank you. We'll move on to page 497.